God, a just God. Most intellectual people and logical people with a little bit of thinking, they say there must be another world where justice exists. The murderer will be punished for what he did. The oppressor that was never caught. Many kings and rulers we had, they had easy lives. Nobody caught them, but they killed hundreds of thousands and maybe sometimes millions of people. So there must exist, if we believe in a God, and he's a good God, of course, there must be another life that exists for us to punish the evildoers, to reward the good doers. We believe that this world is limited. However much we are going to be rewarded, it is not enough for the good. We see people like Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, who was awwal mazloom, the first oppressed, and that he worshipped God with full sincerity. And there must be, we say, there must be, if Allah is a good God, and he is, there must be another world that people like Imam Ali alayhi salam, people like the Prophet of Islam, they can fulfill their actions. There can be a world that is not limited. The problem with this world, when we think about it, it's limited. The enjoyments are limited. The time span is limited. There must be another world for good people to reap and truly reap their benefits without a limited way. So people do not have a problem with the hereafter. When it comes to prophets, they do not have problems with prophets themselves. Actually, they like them. They like good. They like akhlaq. They like when a person has virtue. They like kindness. They like mercy. When it came to the life of the Holy Prophet, didn't the Meccans like him at the beginning? Did they hate him from the beginning? No, they loved the Prophet. He is, Muhammad al-Amin. He is the trustworthy. He would tell them if the enemies were going to come when he gives his first speech, one of his speeches, that you trust me if I told you that the enemies were coming. And of course they accept him, they believe in him. But what happened that they started hating the Prophet of Islam? The Meccans, the polytheists. When he came and told them, I'm a prophet that has given you instructions, and I want you to change your lives. I want you to put away this part of your life, idol worship. I want you to put away this part of your life, oppression to children, to females, oppression to the people that need help, that are oppressed. I want you to be fair to people. I want you to pray. When these instructions came, then he became the enemy. So the problem that we see that people have with religion is when religion comes with commands and tells people what to do and what not to do. Then they say, oh, no, now you're not Muhammad Amin, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad anymore. Now we're going to go to Abu Talib and complain. Now we're going to go to you and warn you. Now we're going to oppress those that follow you, and that they had to migrate to Ethiopia because now they're in danger. So the problem that humans have is that the prophets come with a message, and that message is to stop following your desires and follow God's will and change your lives. And if you do not change your lives, these are sins. So the main problem that humans have with religion is with sin. They cannot take it. Look at some of the verses of the Holy Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, لما جاءهم رسول بما لا تهوى أنفسهم فريقا كذبوا وفريقا يقتلون. Whenever an apostle brought them which was not their liking, they would deny a part of them and they would slay a part of them. Whenever a prophet came with something they do not like, because their nafs, they're used to something that they want to have them for themselves. They're used to living life in a certain way, and that prophet comes and says, no, change. And if you don't, this is a sin. Or we see that actions and fulfilling actions in the right way, fulfilling the commands of God, and staying away from the muharramat and prohibitions is one of the most important themes that we see in the Quran. Because this is where the fight is over. Because the prophets came to show the lordship and the walayat and the authority of God. That's what people have a problem with. Not with God, as we said, as just a creator. As a Lord that tells you, do this and don't do this. And the Prophet is there to just tell them, give them a message. And the Imam comes to follow and tells them, this is the instructions you have. Now, what can we do when we look at some of the verses of the Holy Quran? We see this theme over and over and over. That is these actions, it is refraining from breaking the commands of God, which is so important. This is the central theme in religion. It's not necessarily just to have good akhlaq, to be, a very polite person, to be a very generous person. These are good things, but these are not goals. The goal is al-Islam, wa taslim, submission to these commands. That is religion. That is the difference between religion and ethics, even though that sometimes they overlap. And we believe that a religious person becomes the most ethical. But we don't believe that our goal is just ethics. We believe our goal is something even higher. One of our scholars, by the name of Ayatollah Jawadi Amudi, he has a definition for humans. From the time of Aristotle, from the logic from Aristotle, we used to always believe that man, his definition is al-insan haywanun natiq. What does this mean? Haywanun natiq means what? That speaks. And also incorporates thinking too, because you need to be able to think to speak. You need to have a level of cognition, of understanding. That is why children, when they begin to speak, what does that show? That the brain is developing higher. So he has some problems with this definition, and I'm trying to prove this point to you. And he says that, you know what, a definition should eliminate or remove others that aren't part of this definition. But this doesn't do this, because there's many animals that communicate, they talk. Say, for example, even fish that we don't, think they're the brightest of animals, they communicate to each other. They say one of the dangers that we have in, say, the coral reefs is that there's so much noise from the boats that these fish communicate and they warn each other. And a lot of, say, even like clownfish, they go and hide in it like a sea anemone, and they can't communicate to each other because of all the noise. And suddenly they get caught. So fish communicate, animals communicate. Man is not the only being that communicates. That's not the distinguishing feature. They call this fasl, or differentia. That is not the fasl of humans. Also, if a human doesn't speak, and God doesn't give him the ability to speak, is he not human anymore? Many people have problems with speech, and they cannot communicate in a certain way. Maybe there's handicaps that they have. Are they not human anymore? No. So it's not, jam' al-afrad or mani' al-aqyar, we call it in logic. It doesn't separate everybody else or include all humans. So he has a definition for humans that's very interesting. He says, al-insan hayyun muta'allih. Hayy means what in Arabic? Alive. What does he mean by alive here? It means that humans will never have death. Humans never have death, real death. Because who are we? Are we this body, these limbs, these legs, this head? I am a spirit. That's my real existence. This is a cover for me. It's protecting me, that I'm inside, my spirit is inside this body. So when we die, it's not real death. It's just a transformation. It's just a different part of life. Therefore, one of the genus of humans is that they are high. They always live. Other beings, they might die, but we have a spirit, And with that spirit, we're always alive. But what's the main distinguishing factor of humans? Muta'allih. Humans are godly. Humans are connected to God. Humans get close to God. They become godly. They attain the attributes of God. Ta'alluh comes from uluhiyah, right? So that is the most important distinguishing factor. If you say, what is a human? His connection, his proximity, and him becoming godly. And the more you become godly and close to God, the more of a human you are. It's not an animal that speaks only. Right? You see the level now of humans, how higher it is with this definition. So when we think of sins, and we think of the Quran, and we think of Allah repetitively telling us to do actions, it is for what purpose? To make us closer to God with this purpose. And we see this theme over and over in the Quran. Maybe no other concept. Even beliefs is very interesting. Even if you say beliefs is more emphasized. Even beliefs is, for example, polytheism in the Quran is an action. You know, is something haram, is something that is a sin, polytheism. Even beliefs we believe. To know something that is true and you decide to reject it and go against it, that is a sin itself. So nothing is maybe as emphasized as sinning in the Holy Quran. Look at some of the verses. Inna akramakum inna Allah atqakum. Who is the most noblest in the sight of Allah? The one that has refrained from sin the most. Doesn't matter what race you are. Doesn't matter how much money you have. It is not like this world where we give who is the most noble. It is, you know, the CEO of these Fortune 500 companies. It is the successful, you know, writer, the successful, you know, inventor. These are all good. But in the eyes of God, it might be a very poor farmer that is very oppressed from an oppressed country, but is, you know, akramakum indallah. Sometimes some of the scholars, when we look at some of the deputies of Imam Mahdi, Ajallahu Ta'ala Faraja, or the Imams, they weren't sometimes even the most knowledgeable. They were just the purest. They were the most God-worried. They had the most taqwa, and they became a representative of Imam Mahdi, or they became a representative of the other Imams. So much so that some of the other scholars, during that time, and during the Ghaibat, they believed they should have been the deputy of Imam Mahdi because their knowledge was higher. But they didn't have as much taqwa, and some of them became part of the qulat, and they actually became, you know, infidels. So when we look at action, action is what gives us the most amount of worth, staying away from sin. Sin is what people are afraid of the most in religion, and that is why maybe it's the main reason they don't approach religion, because they don't want to change. Because for you to believe in Islam means you also have, there's consequences. When you right now say someone researches Islam, this is beautiful. This tawheed and monotheism in Islam is nowhere else found. This belief in the hereafter and divine justice is nowhere else found. But how come I don't become a Muslim? If it's a sister, I have to put on hijab. If I say it's true, then I have to put on hijab. It's hard. It might be hard. You know, I don't want to say it's hard. It's actually Islam, the instructions are not hard. Islam is a deep religion. It's not a hard religion. But for that person to make that change, they have to, there might be, you know, difficulty for them. Or for example, if it's a brother and they're researching Islam and they're used to certain sins or certain way of life, and they say this lifestyle that you live, you have to change it. Even though Islam makes perfect sense. Maybe it's difficult. Maybe my family, you know, they're Christian, they're Jewish, they don't have a religion. I have to go and, you know, be different than them. I remember one of the converts that was telling a story that she was saying one of the most difficult things is when I became a Muslim. I put on the hijab and my mom was like, okay, she was a non-Muslim. But then after a while, I saw my mother and my mother's cooking. I liked it a lot, and it's very disrespectful not to eat your mother's cooking. And I said I became a Muslim, and she offered me food. is it halal meat? Is it not halal meat? And I said, Mom, I cannot eat this food. And it was so difficult for her to tell her mother after many years seeing her that I cannot eat your food, even though I've been eating your food since I was a baby, right? I was in your stomach. So these consequences, these actions that we have, this is what's difficult in Islam. Peace or say salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A group of Christians approached the Prophet of Islam. The Quran was so beautiful when even the polytheists came and they had plans to destroy Islam, because now the Prophet of Islam is getting power and they're reciting the Quran in Mecca during times where all of Arabia, they're coming and listening to verses of the Quran. They're saying, do something. And they send different scholars to approach and very different poets to come and listen to the Quran, to try to refute it, to reject it. And what do they say? They say at the end, they don't want to accept it, but they say, this is sihr. This is witchcraft. But they're still admitting it's a miracle. It's something that's not in the capability of humans. So in Arabia, they're listening to the Quran, and it is the most, because that time period is a time period of poetry. And Allah gives their miracles according to that time period of what the people are into. If it's, say, sorcery during the time of Prophet Musa, he brings the best type of miracle that the sorcerers say, no, this is not normal sorcery, this is from God. Or if it's curing the sick during the time of Prophet Isa alayhi salam, they say, no, this is something we cannot do. We cannot do, or raise the dead. This is something that it is a miracle. So they see the verses of the Quran and they cannot challenge it. So even the Christians, they come and they say, this is a beautiful message, but they tell the Prophet of Islam, there are just two things. If you eliminate, I'll become Muslim. Make alcohol halal, if it's for alcohol, and make the meat of swine or pork. Make that halal. Because of these two things, they said we cannot become Muslim. It shows you the reason that people do not become Muslim is because we're used to living a lifestyle and we cannot fight against our own nafs. We cannot sacrifice. We cannot become a true abd and slave of God. Therefore, we reject Islam. And the best way to progress spirituality is to act upon Islam. Maybe it isn't just knowledge is important, to read the most amount of books, good. But the way of the prophets, the way of the ulama, the way of the urafa was amal salih, acting. And your heart becomes purified, and you come close to Allah just by following His commands. Look at some of the other verses in the Holy Quran. الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. He has created for you life and death. Here it says death and life. Why? ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. He has created you to see which one of you performs the best, as if it's a competition. It is a competition. In some of the narrations, and I read that narration, it is a competition of some of the verses of the Quran. When you say as-sabiqun, as-sabiqun, it means it's a competition. God gave you life and death. The entire universe is created to see which one of you can sacrifice the most for God. Which one of you can submit the most for God? When it comes to your family matters, when it comes to your work, and you're wondering, should I do this investment or not? This might be haram. This investment in this company might be haram, but it's a good stock. It's going to give me a lot of money, but it's haram. Or, for example, this action, this way I'm going to treat my spouse, this is going to be haram. The way that I raise my kids, it might be haram. Very interesting. So Allah has created us. We're talking about sin being the main point in the Quran and Hadith. God has created us to see which one of you will refrain from sin and which one of you will fulfill the wajibat. Let me ask you something. You've heard some of the names of God in the verses when it comes to tafsir. Allah will say a sentence in the Quran, then there'll be one or two attributes of God. Do you think it's just random that God puts these attributes right after He says something. For example, He says in the same verse, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْغَفُورُ. What does Aziz and Ghafur have to do? The mighty and the forgiving. What does that have to do with the verse before, you think? This is what one of the scholars was saying. It's very interesting to know that those attributes of God are related to that specific verse. Why does Allah says He's created life and death so you can have the best actions, and He is the mighty and He is the forgiving? Does anybody know? Is there any relationship between these two attributes of God and not refraining from sin or doing good action? Does anybody want to give a prize? If so, they give the right answer, maybe you'll answer. You'll win a new car or something. Does somebody want to? Good. You are on the right track. Of course, I'm saying this. This is just from the Zahir of the Quran, apparent meaning of the Quran. But when you perform actions, He says, Allah says, I've created life and death so you can do the best actions. But I'm mighty and I'm forgiving. What is He trying to say, maybe? That I am mighty. Fear me. If you want to do the best actions, remember, I am mighty. I am your Lord. I am powerful. I will punish you. Yeah, I will punish you. What does that mean? Khawf. He's bringing to you khawf. Huwa al-Aziz brings fear. Oh, you're Aziz, okay. But at the same time, this says Ghafur too. I am the Ghafur. I am forgiving, which is giving me raja and hope. Perform good actions. I am mighty, but I am also kind to you. Same in the very two words, basically, Allah is teaching us maybe al-khawf and raja. Two lights that we have that has to be balanced. Always. You can't ever have too much fear from God, and then you think He'll never forgive you. You can't have too much hope in God, and then you think, oh, I could do whatever I want. MashaAllah, I'm following Imam Hussein, I'm doing azadari, I'm forgiven, alhamdulillah, then I'm go back to, being shemmed in my life, for example, being shemmed to my family member. So He teaches you in these verses, you look, it'll say, Al-Ghafur, Al-Aziz, Al-Ghafur means hope and raja, possibly. This is something that I want you, brothers and sisters, when you read the Quran, look at those attributes of God after. Let's look at the traditions now. So we're saying that sinning is the most important, one of the most important things in religion. And people don't accept Islam because of sin, because those prophets come and tell them to do something that their nafs and hawa doesn't want to do. Therefore, they oppose them, they kill them, or they reject them. Imam Ali alayhi salam, when asked in the month of Ramadan, what is the best thing to do in the month of Ramadan? What did the Holy Prophet say in Khutbah Sha'baniyah? He said to him, أفضل الأعمال في هذا الشهر الورع عند محارم الله. Wara, meaning basically taqwa. The best of actions is not to sin. This is the month of Ramadan. It's the month of God. Maybe it's dua. Do dua as much as you can. You're fasting. Maybe different actions. Be kind to your family members. Be kind to your parents. He says, wara. He gives us this rule, which is Shahrullah, the month of Allah. The Rasul is telling us that the best action, the most important is not to sin. كل يوم لا يقصى الله فيه فهو يوم عيد. It is so important that we understand this concept of not saying that if you don't sin one day, it is an aid for you. You can give each other gifts. You can come to the center, and some of the brothers, inshallah, will give you a nice prize or something, inshallah, with their money. It shows you this is our aid. This is our happiness. This is the theme that we should be thinking about. Let's recite another salawat on Muhammad wa ala. Sometimes people say sinning is a hard topic to talk about because people don't like it. You're telling them, I mean, they killed the prophets for it. Inshallah, you don't attack me afterwards, inshallah, for saying this. But it is a difficult topic because you always like to feel good about yourself, you know. We don't like to, some of the verses in the Quran say, بَلْ يُرِيدُ الْإِنسَانِ لِيَفْجُرَ أَمَامَهُ. Mankind likes to make open what is in front of him. He wants to be free. He likes to be free. He doesn't like to be an abd. That's one part of mankind. One part of mankind is saying, do whatever you want. And this will lead into disbelief even. You know, if you really don't want to do something, you'll start disbelieving it. If you think about this sentence. If you really, really don't want to do something, you'll start disbelieving. Oh, it's not true. Forget it. Let me do what I want. These are problems that you have. Now, what can we do to make this easier? And we were talking about a little bit about this, but I didn't. This wasn't organized this way. Sinning, we're saying, is central. This is why the prophets came. This is why they killed them. This is what turned the Holy Prophet into a lovable person, into their enemy. It was the commands that he gave. How can we make this easier? How can we fight against this nafs? What can we do to make following the rules easier for us? And I'm going to give some steps, and inshallah we'll end. One, and I talked about this, is that if we don't understand this, we're going to have a difficulty in religion. We're going to get tired. A lot of us, when you keep saying sin, unfortunately, because we don't have a high level of Islamic education, we just think, God just wants us just to follow him, He likes power, maybe, na'udhu billah. He likes power. And if you don't obey him, you'll be punished because you're going against him. And he wants power. You should not disobey God. This is unfortunately a belief that many of the believers have. They think that na'udhu billah, God, and sometimes this is similar to a tyrant, someone that's power hungry. But look at this narration from Imam as-Sadiq in Tuhaf al-Uqul. It says the exact opposite. Inna Allah bimanihi wa rahmatihi. Before he talks about taklif and giving you obligations, Imam as-Sadiq says, with his favor and his mercy, lamma farada alaykum al-fara'id, when he made obligatory for you the fara'id, the obligations, the taklif. ذَلِكَ عَلَيْكُمْ لَمْ يَفْرِضْ ذَلِكَ عَلَيْكُمْ لِحَاجَةٍ مِّنْهِ إِلَيْكُمْ. He did not do this because he had any need of you. God did not give you all these duties and tasks. If you look at the month of Ramadan, it's Shahrullah. Allah gives you more things to do, more homework. Right? More things to do. You're more busier. When Allah loves you, He gives you more taklif. He tells you to do. When you go to visit Him in Hajj, what does He do? He makes 10, 20 things haram now. And it's difficult. You have your muhram, you have ihram. Now these things He gives you more taklif. Why? Not because He has need of it. Not because He is in need of it. بَلْ بِرَحْمَتِهِ مِنْ لِيَمِيزَ الْخَبِيثَ مِنَ الطَّيِّبِ. So that there can be a distinction between the bad and the good. He can separate you. Who of you are an abd? I'm going to give you trials and tribulations and give you taklif. I want to see in this world, this 70, 80, 90 years, inshallah live 100, 200 years old, maybe like Prophet Adam, around 1,000 years old, they say. I wanted to see which one of you follow Allah the most. In good times and in bad times. Ma fi sudurikum, what's in your hearts? Who are the best people? If Allah didn't test us, we wouldn't know who are the best. Don't we see that Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we understand who Abu Abdullah is alayhi salam in this test that he gave in Ashura, and that every moment he sacrificed, his face became holier and holier and holier and lighter with more nur. وَلِيُمَحِّصَ مَا فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ, so that you can be purified. What is in your heart can be purified. You see, like when they want to purify a metal over and over, they give it heat from, to make iron hard, cast iron. They keep hitting it and giving it heat, cooling it, hitting it, cooling it, hitting it until it becomes very solid. So that you can compete with each other in God's mercy, he says. Actually, not because he is a dhalim. So that you can compete each other, getting the most amount of mercy in God. Because following him, being an abd of him, is actually attaining the most amount of mercy of him. Abdi ati'ani aj'aluka mathali. You become muta'allih, you become like God, you get the powers of God. You become close to him. Your dunya, your akhirat will be beautiful. So we see in this narration, it's not because of his need. He does not have any need. Let me ask you something. When the Imams told us to cry, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam tells his companions to fight for him, is it for himself? Does Imam Hussein need him? Need them? Or is it for the companions to reach salvation? It is so his companions can reach salvation. It is so that his companions can be in such a way that some of them were Yazidi. Some of them were Yazidi. They were in the army of Yazid. But with seeing the beautiful face of Abu Abdullah and Hussein, he reaches such a way that when Imam al-Sadiq does ziyarat, he says salams to the companions of Imam Hussein. Imam Sadiq is saying salam to this former Yazidi. Imam Hussein does not need us. He is Abu Abdullah, the Ahlul Bayt. All of creation is humble to them if they use their wilayat. But they are trying to guide us. They're Hadi. They're Mahdi. They are guided and they guide people. He is Safinatun Najat. In the night of Ashura, Imam Hussein, we can dim the lights. In the night of Ashura, Imam Hussein tells everybody, they're after me. You don't need to come. You don't need to follow me. Turn the lights off. We could dim the lights here. And whoever wants to leave can leave. I'm kidding this. But they're after Imam Hussein alayhi salam. They're not after you. So you can leave, whoever wants to leave. They're one of the companions of by the name of Sa'id ibn Abdullah Hanafi. He was actually one of the people that took the letter of Muslim ibn Aqil and brought it to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And he gave the letter. He had a very important letter from Muslim ibn Aqil from Kufa. He wrote and wrote to reach Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and this was one of the last wills of Muslim ibn Aqil to tell Imam Hussein not to come to Kufa. He knew, though, the entire time he would be martyred. This is not a surprise to Imam Hussein. It wasn't that he was informed. If you look at evidences in history, if you look at evidences in hadith, Imam Hussein knew he would be martyred. He even knew his family members would be taken as captives. So Sa'id ibn Abdullah Hanafi, Imam Hussein says, you can leave, whoever wants to leave, go. There, he gets very upset and shows his love to Imam Hussein, because the camp of Imam Hussein is the camp of love and hope. And he says, Sa'id ibn Abdullah says, Wallah law a'lam anni uqtal thumma uhya. I swear by God, if I knew I was going to be killed and then arisen again and given life again. Thumma uhraq, thumma udra. If I was going to be burnt and my ashes were to be scattered. وَيُفْعَلُ بِذَلِكَ 70 مَرَّةً. Imagine 70 times, he says, I would be alive, killed, burnt, ashes scattered. Live, burnt, killed, ashes burnt, ashes scattered. 70 times. مَا فَرَقْتُكَ حَتَّى أَلْغَى حِمَامِي دُونَكِ. I will not leave you until I die for you. And then very clearly he says the reason for this. كيف أفعل ذلك وإنما هي موتى وقتلى واحدة. How come I would do this when death in this world is only once? I'm saying this happened to me 70 times. If death is only one death, this is one death. ثم هي بعد الكرامة التي لا انقضاء لها أبدا. But there will be a karamat and blessings for me that will never cease. Why would I ever leave you, Hussein? I will be with you in the heavens with you. So what happened to Sayyid ibn Abdullah Hanafi? I swear by Allah, he was loyal to his call. He was loyal to his claim. On the day of Ashura, when the companions of Imam Hussein, they are being hurt, they are being showered with arrows, and Imam Hussein alayhi salam is leading people in salat and showing the world that one of the most important actions you do is salat, even during the time of battle, even during the time that arrows are being shattered. Just how Isa ibn Maryam, when he was born, he talked about salat in the cradle. Imam Hussein, during death, during the day of Ashura, during the intense moments of battle, he showed the world that you have to pray, you have to do your salat. Sayyid ibn Abdullah was one of those volunteers that he would track down the arrows. It is not something easy. We think it's very easy taking arrows. One of the scholars, they say that he thought it was very easy to see Imam Hussein and arrows get shot for him. He had a dream, and in that dream it showed that every arrow that was being shot, he would move away and it would hit Imam Hussein in his dream. So someone like a Sayyid ibn Abdullah Hanafi, a true companion of Imam Hussein, would take arrows, maybe some by his chest, maybe some by his face, but he wanted Imam Hussein to finish his prayers. But he sacrificed himself for the salat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. There it says, after taking about 13 arrows, these are loyal companions. These are people that Imam Hussein loved them and they loved Imam Hussein. After 13 arrows, Imam Hussein comes to him. He is dying. What is the last sentence this pure abd, this pure servant of Allah says? He says, Awafaytu yabna Rasulullah? Was I loyal to you? How humble is this statement? It wasn't like, oh, Hussein, look, I took 13 arrows. He says, is this enough? Have I been enough? Have I done enough for you, Hussein? Have I been loyal? There Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the Maqtal says, Na'am anta amami fil jannah. Yes, you are in front of me in heaven. Meaning that you are with me in heaven. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيُّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ ماتم الحسين.